Or you see the sign with "Don't ski out of bounds" with like the dude like upside down with the skis and like going off the
stuck in a tree well.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
and like and I remember
Yeah.
I think I told you when we went to Jackson, they were like, "Don't ski out of bounds," because that was our deal,
No.
man. And Mammoth, we always skied
Yeah.
out of bounds. And
Yeah.
the first thing they told us is don't ski out of bounds because there's craters and crevices that are like 10,000 feet deep, and you'll go in and we'll never find you. Skiers disappear all the time and want to fuck around out of bounds. And we were like, okay,
Yep.
I guess we're not skiing out of bounds.
And that's exactly it. And you come to respect it. It's like when we were skiing in Alta this year, even though it was really bad snow when we were over there, you could just see that the expected level was so much different for terrain. You know, if you were going to take the skis off and hike up and drop into one of the chutes off the west side, it's like, well, it's assumed by everybody involved that the only reason you're there is because the terrain matches your skill level.
Yeah.
Right.
You're
And
just not doing
where
it for the gram.
you're not doing it for the gram, it's too dangerous. It's literally too dangerous to be able to stop and mess about. And we just don't have that right now. Like even up on top of Lincoln, which can be, if you ski the chutes of Lincoln off 22 here, it can be really, really treacherous. And it's not. They've found a way to make it basically passable for a really low entry level.
Is that because
weird.
the quality of the skier isn't as high, or people are just there?
Oh yeah,
fucking
it's
party?
not as high at all. Yeah. So there's two things that we see. One, all the snacks at the cash register were replaced with airplane sized bottles of booze this year, right? Which that's super weird. Like talk about perpetuating alcoholism in young children. So that was strange to see. And then the other is the general entry level of the people up here is so low that, okay, so our generation, it'd be like any sport, like equate it to the weight room. We would be embarrassed to do things so poorly in the weight room that people would laugh at us in our generation, right? Like you just wouldn't do that. You wouldn't go into the weight room and do some sort of weird, funky movement and think it's acceptable because those that have been around would be like, what are you doing? So in the skiing world, what we're seeing is because the majority of people here, their entry level is so low, nobody really calls them out on it. So if someone like takes their snowboard off and sits on it like a sled and slides down a run, one or two people in the chair will be like, oh, look at that guy. What a, douchebag, right? But in terms of the general population, their actual response might be, oh, yeah, that's so much easier than what I was going to try to do. Right. And so you get this like mass amount of low quality humans doing low quality shit and ruining a high quality thing.
Well, fuck, I'm totally blanking on the name. Like we watched all those ski movies with the narrator.
Like Jeff Stump or like Warren Miller.
That's what it was. Yeah, like all the Warren Miller movies.
Yeah,
that was like our number one deal. We would watch these Warren Miller, and he was this old ski bum who got cameras and these dope skiers, and he would like narrate these guys just doing the most insane shit. So we would get these movies VHS and watch these Warren Miller, and then the minute we got out there was like this idea of like, hey, we're going to try to do something that's like worthy of a Warren Miller film. And like that was the level of acceptance. Like you didn't dress like an asshole, like do you remember the one dude who had the mohawk that was like 7 feet tall?
Mammoth local. That's Glenn Plake.
Yep. Yeah,
right?
Dude. We used to see that guy, and that guy was in Warren Miller stuff. And that was a huge deal.
Here's what's funny about that. I was just going to use him as my reference because Glenn Plake is still on Mammoth Mountain half the season, right? So dude, he's up here.
He's got to be 60 or 70. Maybe
pretty
60?
Close, and like super athlete now, right? Like he was a wild man when he was younger, but now he rides he does like the 503 in the summer, which is like a 500-mile bike ride. He's a hardcore gearhead, right? So like rock crawlers, high performance cars, has a host of TV show, and like in his early 50s, flat out won Masters Nationals for water skiing, slalom skiing. So the guy's like this still crushes it, right? So he was like, again, like yourself, one of my idols. So I got to meet him this year through Megan. and got my photo taken with him. It was rad, right? But what people don't realize is this is a guy who was like Oakley and
Yeah.
K2 and like super sponsored in the
He had
90s.
he would
He
wear
was
hot
famous.
pink like he would wear a hot
Yep,
pink suit. He had the deal in the razor blades. And dude, okay,
that's
so I'm
right.
44. So when I was probably like 30 years ago, we would see that guy on the mountain, and that
Yep.
I just remember like seeing that guy and being like, holy shit, that's like the coolest cat. Like we would see him in like the Warren Miller films, and
Yep.
he was out there fucking like just not only killing it, but would do aerials and jumps and like spin shit off, and
He created like the big mountain freestyle movement, right? Like him and Scott Schmidt, and then McConkey came after. And you know what's really crazy is to put it in perspective, and it happened to me this year. I was going up 23, and I recognized him because I recognized how he skis. But here's all these guys ass sliding down the mountain, taking selfies and being generally shitty, right? Like that's what's happening all around me. And then I look up and I see this dude, not flamboyant, like he doesn't have his hair up. You know, he doesn't wear a helmet, right? Because he's old school. So
Yeah.
that's how you can always kind of spot him.
Yeah.
So he's got like a toque on, goggles, and I see him kind of drop off the top of 23. And I immediately could tell it was him because I've seen him ski before.
Yeah.
And he just rips this like effortless line through this like super gnarly shit. And he never stops skiing. He never breaks. He never takes a breath. He never looks back up at what he did. I just see him like drop in and just do this perfect line all the way down, kind of up and over this like little cornice cliff, and just drops off it. And it was so smooth and perfect. And then he was gone. And in my mind, I'm like, that is literally one of the fucking legends of our sport. And no
Yeah.
one even knows that that guy just shredded this line like he's done a million times.
And he didn't stop and
know?
take a picture. He just fucking was epic.
I found-
and do
He
you know
was
why?
literally just epic.
Because here's the best part. It's just what he does. It's nothing special to write home. He's not going home and telling his wife like, oh man, I found this killer shoot and I ran this perfect
Yep.
line. It's just what he does. And he
Just-
goes out there and just, I mean, dude, the fact that he still skis, and like
Yeah.
I just remember being like a kid and seeing that dude, and like I just remember hot pink. He had the mohawk up like maybe like 3 feet, and he would wear
Yeah.
the razor blades, and dude
Yep.
just killing it down the mountain, and us as kids being like, oh, that's the coolest dude ever.
Found an article
How
that
about-
calls him the
Go ahead.
Frank Sinatra of skiing.
The Frank Sinatra
Yeah,
scheme,
go up,
it makes
go up.
sense, man.
Yeah, there he is. God damn it.
And you know what's crazy with Megan's ski team this year that she coached all year? At the end of the year, it accumulated to like a competition. And so here's like Blake, who's like the man, especially in this region.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And the head coach for the team just went, "Hey, would you be interested in being our guest judge for these like little kids skiing?" And he's like, "Sure." And he literally just, no money involved, no nothing. Here's the guy that we know to be, you know, the legend of our sport, sitting there as a guest judge quietly on the rock, and he is evaluating these ski runs. And it's because to this day in his late 50s, he's still like, this is the greatest sport I've ever done. And he could be the dickhead. He could be the guy that still wants to beat the social media drum to stay relevant. But to him, relevance is actually working with, influencing, and trying to get another generation not to forget how rad the sport actually is.
Freight train and I'm right on track. I'm smoking.